And welcome back to Prop by the Bar, back at our usual spot at Geelong Cellar in Little Mallup Street, Geelong. So thanks, Johnny, for hosting us. Market.
Wow, it's been so different, and it's just how things change between in a 6 months, let alone 6 weeks or 4 weeks.
Oh, well, let's talk the changes since the last episode. So we've got a new government.
Yep. Yeah. So that was, I think, not as detrimental as I thought it was going to be in terms of the market. I didn't see the slowdown during the election period that we thought was going to come. Did you see it? I didn't see it.
No, not really. I think commercially it probably affects more than what it does residentially. So I think residentially continued. I think those that were looking at doing stuff commercially probably put their hands in their pockets as what happens traditionally over elections. But now everyone's back on their bike, so there's a fair bit to come out of the woodwork now.
And I think what's really happening now is we're starting to see when the Reserve Bank made those jumps in interest rates. I think that's what really had the impact to put the brakes on. And I think that's more just from a consumer confidence level more than it is from any other really structural level within the property industry. So
I think what we're seeing more and more is, unless there's a property-specific policy like Bill Shorten proposed, the stop to negative gearing, it's actually looking the federally have little effect on what happens with property, and it's more state policy that drives what happens. Yeah,
I think from a policy point of view maybe, but I think that there's actually different fundamentals behind this slowdown than any other slowdown we've had. The slowdowns we've had in the past, the 2008, the GFC, or the other ones, they were based upon two different things. That the jobs, there was a lot less jobs around, so the job rate was much higher, jobless rate was much higher, and interest rates were much higher. And so the affordability of people at that time was really impacted because they were, the jobs, we hadn't had any wage increases or anything like that at that stage, and jobless rate was quite high. So those fundamentals aren't here this time. This is a slowdown based purely upon a commodity crisis, which is macro, it's globally, it's economic globally. And it's what's happening in Ukraine really has had the biggest impact on our local property market. And that might seem strange to some people, but a slowdown on the commodities has impacted every part of the economy in some way.
Well, it's external factors that's creating our inflation anyway.
And it's created flat inflation, and the Reserve Bank is reacting to that inflation as it can. I think what the Reserve Bank is really doing, if you want to put it in layman's terms, is they're creating a buffer. And it's not for now. They're not trying to deal with the inflation now as much as they say that. Australia's sitting 38th in the world for inflation at the moment in OECD countries. So we're nowhere near the top in terms of fast inflation. And even some of those countries at the top, like America, have already slowed down in inflation. So what they're doing right now, this Reserve Bank, is they're getting us back to normal levels. And in my view, they've done it a bit late. They should have started doing it in November. And that's why we're seeing it have a much bigger impact now, because they're trying to catch up. They misjudged it, they missed it, and they're trying to catch up with big hits. They've gone 0.25, then 0.5. Their predicted terminal rate is about 2.6, but that's not until mid next year.
Do you think it's lessons of learnt of the past, where in the Keating era, they did 0.25%, and it did nothing to reduce inflation. So do you think bigger hits up front is trying to cool the jets?
Yeah, it's a good argument. I haven't heard that one before as an argument. I actually don't mind that argument. I think that's. I think it's had a bigger impact than 0.25% increases for sure. I think it's really smart economics to get back to a buffer that if we do hit a recession next year, a global recession, we've got a food famine coming across the world. We've already seen some of the more poorer countries in the world are unable to pay for food. Now, that's crisis, right? And that creates worldwide recession. That's when we have big issues. So we've already sort of started seeing countries not being able to afford the grain and the wheat. Australia's really lucky. We've got surpluses in the commodities that we create. We've got surpluses in grain, we've got surpluses in timber, all this sort of stuff. We need to be a bit smarter about our economic, what we send overseas, export stuff. We're tied into free trade agreements, which means we're tied into the world economy. So we are going to feel some pinch from what happens worldwide. And if we've got some buffer from this inflation rise, we're going to be protected a bit because the Reserve Bank then has some gears to get us back on track when we need to.
So we've had 2 interest rate hits or hikes. What have you seen number-wise?
We haven't really seen any major impact on numbers. We've seen less listings and less sales and less confidence, the heat is gone. The fear of missing out is certainly gone.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen any lesser ability for people to afford things. Have you seen any sales that have sort of fallen over from a finance point of view, people not having the money?
Not really. I've only seen one, but that's the first one in a long time. But like when we have a look at the state auction results, the capital city auction clearance rates have actually gone up, but there's less on the market, which is not unusual for this time of year.
It's winter.
It's winter.
It's middle of winter.
So,
no one really wants to be
at the peak of I guess the market, there was 12 to 1,400 auctions on a Saturday. Now, Saturday the 18th, the clearance rate was 73%, but there was 471 auctions.
And we always say anything over 65% is a growing market, so 73% is still a growing market.
And there was 854 private sales.
Yep.
The week after, so last Saturday, there was 335 auctions with a clearance rate of just over 70, but there was 956 private sales. So you can see auctions are coming down, private sales are becoming more.
We only have a crash when we don't have a buyer to buy something, right? At the moment, we've still got buyers to buy things, and they're there because there's less listings as well. So even though there's less buyers, there's also less properties to buy. So the demand is staying up. In fact, in the last month, regional Victoria's had 0.3% price increase. Across the 6 months, it's about 5% price increase across the region. And that's shown by the CoreLogic stats amongst a whole bunch of others. So we've still got a growing market across the 6 months. We grew by about 21% over the previous 12 months. So even if the banks are right and all the what would you call them? The dreary so-sos that want to predict the future demise of everybody.
The dreary so-sos.
What do you call them? I don't know. Those miserable pricks. How's that? Miserable pricks. If those blokes are picking 10% decrease in house prices or even 15%, I think in the financial review, there was one of those dreary pricks came out and said that it would be 30% decrease in house prices. You got to love these economists.
But don't you love when they talk about the market? And for episodes, we've talked about markets within markets within markets, and I feel that Geelong is a separate market. Like you've seen that we've always bucked the trend to what the capital cities are doing, and we're still the fastest growing place in Australia.
Yep.
We've outstripped the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast to be number one now.
Yep.
Do you see that changing?
Well, Gold Coast is back to number one. So Gold Coast has had the biggest influx of migration of people in the last little while than Geelong. So they've had over 120,000 people move up there, I think, over that 2-year period or 3-year period over COVID, where we had 30,000 over the same period. But it's much different there. Got a population on Gold Coast now of 600,000. We're at 273,000, I think, as of the last census. So it's different. We're at a higher percentage rate, but they're a much bigger number of people. So they've got similar. The Gold Coast is actually the most like market like ours. Both markets have grown. Both markets are still very, very active. Melbourne and Sydney have had negative trends in the last little while. But even those trends, as you say, are markets within markets. Yep. Some markets in Melbourne, the A-grade properties are still going quite well. Yep. So again, it's markets within markets.
So locally, you want to talk about some of the sales that you've seen over the last 2-3 weeks?
We can't even have this conversation without talking about a certain property in Fyansford.
Yep.
Hamilton Highway at Fyansford. 2 blocks of land next to each other, sold as one development site.
Just under a hectare?
Under a hectare. There was people at this table that were very interested in this property. But it's sold. And it's sold for 6.5 million. Now, why this is significant, up on the corner, on the same road, on Hamilton Highway, with a commercial one zoning. So this property we're talking about was an industrial one zoning. A commercial one zoning, which is theoretically allows more uses and more yielding uses, so it should be a higher value. Sold only a few months prior to that for 435 a square metre, about 4.3. And so this sold for 6.5 for almost the same size parcel, but it was industrial one zone. So what this is telling us is the industrial market is still red hot in terms of looking for land for industrial, looking for land for, and this was sold for a tilt slab type development. Right, it was prime for with exposure to the highway. You'll be able to see it from the highway, and that precinct of Fyansford is going to be the next sort of boom of industrial precinct. Yeah,
and look, the amount of inquiry we're still getting for industrial product outstrips anything else commercially.
Yep.
So and there is a lag in the market because the supply of land is just non-existent.
And people have said to me, "Oh, that sale's too high. It's too much. How do someone pay for that?" Well, there was 2 active bidders, right, amongst others, but in Wyndham and Tarneet and these other places, they're paying $1,000 a square metre for this type of land. So we've still got a buffer of difference, but what it's showing you is that industrial land has just gone strength to strength to strength. It wasn't long ago that we'd be putting $250 a square metre in this land. Now it's gone to $650. Yeah. So industrial, that was a great sale. Congratulations to the guys at Colliers, I think, that sold that one. I understand that there'll be some more developments in there. There's been sales along the coast.
Yep.
Coastal market has still been really active. There's a number of sales that have sold over 2.5. Piers Road Crescent in Ocean Grove, which is just a block of land on the river, 2.7 million. Basically, very basic knockover house. 128 Field Street, South Ocean Grove. I think that got $3.4 million. So there's still plenty of money out there for the right properties, and these are sales that happened this month in June. Here we have two retails next door to each other in a really good spot in the middle of what's called Geelong West Village. And they sold just before the election period started. Yep. Recorded 3.64% yield, a $4.4 million sale price, which really just reflected an underlying land price, I believe. Yeah. So it was a really good, strong sale, right? And then, so there were 2 retails in a really high sought after location.
4 bidders on that.
Yeah.
I was there. Yep.
And then there was the 2 retail shops sold in Pako Street in High Street. In High Street in Belmont. Yeah. And they also received about 3.6% yield.
Around about 3.5.
3.5, yeah. So, very, very, very strong results.
Well, I think it's evident that the market's not going to deter people from good property and good location.
Yeah.
So
again, it's 3.48% though. You think about it, they're not lending any less than 3.5 now with the increase in interest rate. So they're borrowing them less than they'll get on the interest. They'll have to pay an interest. So negatively geared from day one.
Well, lucky Bill Shorten didn't get in there, huh?
Lucky Bill didn't get in.
How about some of the other sales that we've seen over the last month?
Oh, there's a beautiful big property that's just sold out at Prospect from a sort of a rural lifestyle property. Prospect Road, Ceres. I don't know if anybody saw that, 10.5 million. Beautiful house in Ceres with rolling hills and that sort of stuff. Recorded about 100,000 per hectare, which is a pretty big number for a rural lifestyle, which is normally sitting around 75,000 per hectare. So it is a really big sale, and it sits up the top of the hill in Ceres. Beautiful, beautiful home as well. So there's still been lots of strong sales on all fronts. There's, I think actually there's a sale that you've sold, Mike, that I was going to ask you about. Yep. 79 to 81 Moorable Street. I think you guys sold that.
Victoria
House, which is
5-level building.
Really interesting sale. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's a highly unusual one. It's actually probably been abandoned and vacant for, I'm going to say 10 years.
How do you market a vacant building that's got very hard to turn into something? Like, what is the alternative highest and best use for that building?
Well, most of the inquiry was for office.
Yeah.
Some apartments and student accom, but most of the inquiry was for office.
Yep.
Having said that, we had a number of people actually put forward an offer.
Yep.
So we actually sold this one in 11 days.
It needed a refit in every floor. It needed new lift services.
It needs everything top to bottom.
Everything. So there's probably a $3 to $5 million cost on top of the $3 million they're bought in.
Yeah. And it's been bought by a prominent law firm, Thomas, Arnold and Becker, and that's going to be the new home of their offices, which is great confidence
for Geelong.
in Geelong. And,
good for Geelong.
They've engaged a notable high-end architect, so I can't wait to see what they do.
Yeah. So as I say, there's been some really interesting sales. There's been some strong sales in the retail stuff. There's another interesting building that's on the market. It's come on the market. Is Ryrie Street, where the Coulter Roach, Coulter Legal are, and Findex and a few others are. And that property there, I think they've got a WALE. So they bought that property with a WALE of like 0.8 and some very limited leases. But that property is now returning about $980,000 per annum, and they're selling on a WALE of 4.84, which is strong. So it's a strong property, and I think they're chasing sort of numbers closer to 20 million. So that's and I hear they've got interest. So that's another substantial property that's come on the market for sale. So there's some good properties coming on the market. Yep. Another good property, Queenscliff Hotel's on the market.
Yeah, saw that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see how they go. I think Curly's have got that in CBRE. So that'll be an interesting sale. So there's some good stuff coming on.
Yep. Lastly, before we get into our interview, the building industry news has been dominated by Metricon.
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
Well, Mario was such a big person in the building industry. He created that business, and you know, the industry's going to miss him. So condolences to the family. The Metricon itself is substantial. I think they've got 210 homes just in the Geelong region that they're building. If they waver at all, it's substantial to the industry. You'll see collapse of not just them, but collapse of all their suppliers and builders and trades. There'll be, I think there's 2,500 people that are employed directly for Metricon in Victoria. I think there's probably tenfold of that are subcontracted for all those other little people that work for them. So Metricon, we can't afford Metricon. I don't think this country can afford Metricon.
Too big to fail?
To fall. They've just had bad luck. This is a supply issue. We go back to what we talked about at the start about supply of goods. This is about supply of local goods. And what really annoys me about this is we have the ability to control this. The supply, the cost of timber and everything else has gone up so much, but we produce it all here. Why
export it? Yeah.
Put export caps on, and keep some of this stuff in Australia at a lower cost, so our builders can build and not run out of money, and so that we can provide jobs. That's a very simple fix, if you ask me. But I would hope that the government step in. I think they've got 194 million worth of government contracts, and hopefully the government can negotiate and work with them through those contracts to help them out the other side. But that's a company that's worth people going out on a limb for, because they're a good company, they've been a strong company, but there's so many hundreds of thousands of jobs attached. The future of the economy is almost attached.
Anyway, we hope for good outcomes for all involved there, and hopefully all is
well,
good.
I just hope it's just Metricon.
Yep.
We can,
Why don't we get on to something a little bit more uplifting and get into our interview. Our last segment with the roving Mike through Mallet Street was so successful and so popular. It's actually been our most popular episode ever in terms of viewership. So thanks again. But we've decided to, in that ilk, we're combining Property of the Week and our guest interview. So we're going to have a sneak peek through the new GMHBA headquarters.
So basically you cut my segment out, Mike. Replace me with roving Mike.
Well, we're just giving what the people want. So we're going to interview, we're very lucky to interview one of the great property minds of Shane Quinn from Quintessential.
I'm always happy to stand aside for Shane. He's a very smart man.
If only he says the same. But and Wes Self from GMHBA. So why don't we jump straight into that?
Yep, that's great. Let's do that.
Well, Prop's gone on the road this month, and we're here in the foyer of the GMHBA building in Geelong with Shane Quinn, the chairman of Quintessential Equity, and Wes Self, the COO of GMHBA. So thanks, guys, for joining us, and I think we're about to go on a bit of a tour of the building.
Yeah, well, welcome to the building, and let's show everyone what it's about.
I'll tell you what, Mike, it's not often we get out of the bar, is it really, for this sort of things? No. But these microphones, I feel like it's the wide world of sports. You know, it's bloody terrific. But thanks for having us, guys. And this building is terrific, isn't it? And so your tenancy here, you've got 3 stories, 3 levels?
Yeah.
Yep. And like, we just walked in and it's this beautiful big open spaces and levels and stuff. Are you guys enjoying being here? What's it like to actually work here?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we've only been back not too long. We've come from being across 3 different sites, 7 different levels, quite different accommodations. So it's been brilliant for staff, and pandemic aside, it's such a great building. So we've got some other tenant neighbours now, and more space to fill.
When I was coming in the back entrance, because it's got the sneaky park out the back, probably illegal, Mike. There's the you got the biking, end of trip bike stuff and all that sort of stuff down there coming out the back. That's pretty cool. I'm a bit of a cyclist, so I like that. Is that a lot of people's staff use that?
Yeah, well, certainly there's a couple of the Morris Finance crew that I know use the bike facilities.
Well, I would imagine Nathan would turn up in his Porsche though, wouldn't he, instead of his bike?
I don't know if it's Nathan on the bike, but yeah, no, it definitely gets a lot of run. And I just spoke to someone today that doing some renos at home and using the facilities here just to make things easier at home. So, it's amazing to have those facilities for tenants now. So we're loving it.
And Shane, you must be proud, like walking in, we only just started this interview, but you must, like, you walk in with a smile on your face when you walk into your own building, you're finished like this, like, it's fantastic, isn't it?
No, look, there's a lot to be proud of, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go through the building, but to build something like this in Geelong gives us great pride, and again, to do it with GMHBA, I know I'm doing it because Wes is here, but they were amazing partners on the journey, and they shared a vision for really revitalising the city centre and creating a platform and a home for their business, but for other businesses that can thrive and attract and retain the best staff. And this building, as you approach it, it feels good.
Well, we are excited to go and have a look. So why don't we go for a tour?
Yep.
Well, we're here on level 3, about to start our tour. But before we do so, why new building in the heart of the CBD? How'd it come about?
Yeah, we need a new space. So we had our existing head office right where we are today, and it was quite literally starting to fall down around us. So we needed to make a move, do something. And so we had some options. There was, some other options to exit the city, have a bit more space and to be cheaper. But one of the things that was important to us was our role in being part of the fabric of the city. And certainly for staff, having access to Westfield and all of the other amenities around, really important. So we chose to go down that path to see what we could do. Then partnering up with Shane and Quintessential meant that we actually had a really like-minded vision of what we could do. And so we brought the land and some what can we do here. Shane had some other options that meant we had we could actually package it up and get it out of the ground. So we really needed to find a new home, and this is sort of the perfect solution was where we are, where we always have been. So
and process from where to go, like when it was an idea, I guess, to move-in date.
Well, I've been at GMHBA for 10.5 years, so the idea popped up a bit earlier than sort of once we started. But I mean, internally it was 4 years bubbling around. But once we got going, we ran a pretty good process, and I mean, hats off to Quintessential Equity of how we navigated some of the waters of COVID and a whole range of different things that popped up on us. But it's a pretty good process once we sort of got clear on all the. I think the lawyers were the ones that slowed us down the most. We blame them, Shane. But no, once we got all that stuff sorted, it was pretty good. The team certainly got cracking. And then for GMHBA, it was how do we fit out our space? And a really interesting one was, what is the workforce going to need in the future? So without knowing the pandemic was coming, we had to work out, what are our staff, the future staff, going to want from our space? So we had to think about a few of those things like remote working. And thank goodness we did, because we're sort of here already. So GMHBA back in our foundation years, founded by a bunch of cement workers that decided that to protect and really self-insure their families, they pooled their money, and that's where GMHBA was born. So the silos and the cement works were actually where GMHBA was born and bred. So when we're sort of looking at how do we design in some of those features, in particular to the lead into the boardroom and where we might host fine gentlemen like yourselves, we put it there to pay a bit of homage to our foundations. We've got a plaque on the floor that just talks to what we're about. So. Yeah, but
I reckon the architect, it was Cox Architects, wasn't it?
It was.
The architect will be very proud that you actually know all this stuff. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
It helps being along the journey for all of the different parts.
I can attest, Wes had his sleeves rolled right up. I don't think he was wearing sleeves at some point. So he was deep inside this building. I think his DNA is in it. So
the guns go all right then?
Yeah, go all right.
So this is the boardroom, isn't it? How cool is this? I mean, I don't know how many directors GMHBA has, but there's a few seats here. Have you ever had a call here?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. There's many reasons to love this, and I'm sure Wes can expand on it. But yeah, I've had a call here, and it is incredible. The acoustics and the way that they've set it up, it feels like people are actually in the room. So it's it's definitely one of the best call centres I've ever been in. And then if you actually factor that in, it's actually bad because we're trying to draw people back into the building, but they can be anywhere. So
the views are awesome. Almost what's that, over Avalon somewhere over there? It's pretty cool. What do you reckon, Wes?
Yeah, no, it's a great room. We don't have enough directors to fill all the seats, but the directors always inviting management in to present on things, so it's good. It's good we've got the space. One of the things that I was pretty loud about was making sure we got some VC equipment that the staff could actually work. I've been in plenty of Collins Street buildings with these pretty fancy Cisco systems and everything else that everyone needed IT to work it. So that was important for us. But yeah, no, it works really well. And just another thing on the wall, we've got some artwork, and we commissioned sort of local Wadawurrung artist to do some work.
Cool.
And so GMHBA's got some of that work in our tenancy, and then also, you know, in collab with QE, we've got a big piece down the foyer, which is also done.
Is that pretty important in your designs and stuff to incorporate all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it's very easy to do it here in Geelong. We've just finished the Geelong Council building and integrating the Aboriginal design. You'll see it in the facade, you see it here in the lobby, and the Wadawurrung people are amazing to deal with. So they've been very welcoming to us, and have been a real value add to our buildings. Yeah.
Did you just say you just finished the Civic building?
Well, finishing.
Just on the art there,
finishing.
I understand that either South or Council have engaged with an Aboriginal or Indigenous artist to actually etch artwork into some of the pillars.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm sure people driving into Geelong will now see on the fins some of those great designs. So But anyway, that's the other building. We're here to talk about GMHBA. But
we've got some planter boxes out here, and we have Gen U come and support us. At the moment, they're not what they will be. In the old building, we had a rooftop garden, and so we provided a lot of veggies and that sort of thing to the Christchurch up the road in Moorabool Street here. So Gen U will come and we'll turn these back into garden, sort of veggie gardens once we've got people back in the building, and you know, continue to support one of the local mobs that's doing pretty good work for people that can't get a feed very easily.
Yeah. Great cause. Obviously, this services the boardroom area, but I imagine there's outdoor areas on the upper floors that staff can access.
So this is our top tenancy floor. Yeah. So this one's got the balcony, which is accessible through to staff through that way, and we can jump out in a second. And then there's one more balcony for a lucky tenant.
Yeah.
Shane.
Yeah. There will be.
So but we can have a quick squeeze outside.
Yeah.
Let's go. So how many floors are actually tenanted at the moment?
So there's 9 floors, and I'm trying to do the maths now. There's 5.5 floors gone.
Yep.
So we still have space, and we're looking forward to working with a couple of tenants that we're already talking to.
So a bit of synopsis, about 10,500 square metres. Is that about right?
About 11,000 metres, yeah.
Yep.
And so, look, it has been tough through COVID. I won't lie, but there's pent up demand, and we're going to service that. We're ready to go, and we think we've got the best space in town to offer those tenants that want to, relocate their business here and take advantage of having amazing staff wrapping around Geelong.
Well, we're seeing that. I reckon we're going to see this start to happen now, aren't we? Really, because we're coming out of COVID. There's a lot of businesses that wrapped up their tenancies in Melbourne, and they will need to come back to work, and they're going to look at places where they can have lifestyle, where they can, where their employees want to live, and these sort of tenancies. I reckon, I don't think you're going to have trouble filling that last one.
So again, confidentially, we're talking to all of your people, but we are talking to a national tenant with a national footprint that tells us that they've got 300 people that post-COVID now live down here. 300 additional people have moved to this region.
Yeah, right.
So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But that's what they're telling us. So,
it's a great story.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's very prosperous if you look into the future, what is in store for Geelong. So, yeah.
Just to bring it back to this building, obviously you've got a brand new building. Not much staff in there at the moment. There's been a lot of work from home mandates where we've lost the mask mandates. People heading back. What's the program look like in staff returning back into the office here?
Yeah, so we've just really kicked off our transition back in. It was important for us to make sure we continue to peg to what the government, guidelines were about, what they're expecting from workforces. So we've done that, but now we get to start the journey of, I know it's a frustrating phrase for everyone, but COVID normal. So just getting back to what are we doing after COVID. So we're in week 2 really of our formal transition back into the building. We've had a few people being in here for a while, and day 1 was incredible. We had we put coffees on for people. We had brekkie on, and just the buzz in the community was amazing. So that's what I've been hanging out for.
Yeah, well, people craving just probably the adult interaction. They've had 2 years of homeschooling and whatnot, and probably ready to get back into offices, I dare say.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the flexibility is what employees are after, and that's what we're providing. Sort of work for the day that you've got ahead of you, and enabling that flexibility, but also having this sort of quality office space means that it's not a hit to come into office. It's actually a really great space to be at, which is just perfect for us. Again, we didn't pick the pandemic. We're already on this journey, but it's great to have such quality space for people to return to.
Gareth and I have always discussed how important it is for the CBD officers to get back to work. So so we can get retail and hospitality.
We need the foot traffic,
the cafes and all that to get back in here. So we look forward to a little bit more foot traffic in the CBD.
Well, I think that's one of the big key things to come next, isn't it? Like, we've got the government agencies, but now we're getting some private sector constructions developments like this one, but we've got to see some build for rents, we've got to see some apartments, we've got to see some density, and we've got to see people using the CBD. Do you reckon that we're going to see some of that Melbourne build for rent sort of stuff, Shane? Or?
I think so. I think there's a real opportunity for people to come down and be a part of that, and because there's a lot of young millennials now choosing to come here. And I've seen the demographics on it, and we need to service them, and they're going to need places to live, and they love the amenity. Yeah. And once you create it, you build it, they'll come.
And we've talked about it. The affordable housing dynamic has completely changed in Geelong now with the rise in house prices. There almost is no affordable housing stock. We do need the build for rent guys to get down here and start looking at Geelong, start buying up some of these sites.
No, I think there's a massive opportunity for people in the property industry to look to that and take advantage. And you look around here, there's a lot of low rise that, if you set your sights on build to rent, I think people would make, a real go of it.
Yeah, so, I reckon the market's there for it, I really do. Yep.
Should we kick on and have a look a bit more?
Yeah.
So we're in the workhorse area, I guess, if you like to say. So we've got, obviously we haven't got too many staff in here today, but we've got workstations here.
I was going to say it's great for you to clean it out for us and tell them all to go home today.
we scored them the day off, did we? But obviously here we've got breakout areas with fully equipped kitchen, some silent room areas, obviously green walls. Is this typical of all the other floors within the building?
Yeah, pretty much. We just want to, it's not a new concept, but want to create space, given we've got to design from scratch, where people can just get away from the desk when it's time to get away from the desk. So plenty of different type of space. And, even just the bench seating up here, people come and eat their lunch and have a coffee or whatever and look out over the water, which is pretty cool.
There's one thing I've been wanting to ask is this central staircase, auditorium, I guess. Can you tell me what the idea about that was?
Yeah, so early on, and I think Shane, his team had some of the ideas around this, was integrating the floors and what that does for the collaboration and the community of the business. So, and for us being a health business, it was really important that we're motivating the right, and really trying to get people to use positive, healthy behaviours. So it's been incredible. We've now integrated, level 1 through to level 3, and nowhere really feels disconnected. Yep. And the amount of times that you see someone that you haven't seen for a while and you'll quickly go down the stairs and say hi, it's not too far away.
Well, normally you've got full floors, but with this you can see right through, can't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's a bit of a trade-off of, of space in terms of, but it's I think it's paying back well and truly, and just use some of the other space to make sure that people want to catch up for a chat. They can jump on the bleachers here, but otherwise it's a brilliant thing. You'll get lots of people getting their steps up, which is good.
Yep, great idea.
There's a story here about being the first private sector to build, and hats off for building in the CBD really, because a lot of people have gone out of the CBD. That's not helping the CBD. So I think that's a story in itself, that you guys just took the choice to stay here and to build it here and to support the business of CBD. But otherwise, gents, I'm blown away. This is a fantastic building, fantastic place, and thank you both for coming.
We're here in the foyer of the GMHBA building in Geelong with Shane Quinn, the Chairman of Quintessential Equity, and Wes Self, the COO of GMHBA.
And it is a first. It's a first in many ways. It's the first private sector built building, which is a big thing for Geelong. I don't think people understand that a lot of the stuff we've had have been authority driven. So where they've gone out to the market and said we need to build this for an authority with a lease in place. That's a much easier proposition than building for the private sector, isn't it?
No, it really is. And I think it's a watershed moment for Geelong, and that government has done the right thing, and they've committed to the town centre and created a bit of density with obviously One Mallet, WorkSafe, TAC, NDIS. So that's created the density, and now businesses in the private sector, they've got to fight for talent, and GMHBA was aware of that, and they want to give their staff a home that is equal of any home in Geelong, and this building facilitates that. And you'll see some of the view lines out of this building and the warmth inside the space that's created. It's going to attract people back to the office, so yeah, we're excited.
I don't know if WorkSafe allow valuers or real estate agents in their portfolio, but I'd certainly get a job here.
Shane, similarly, I'm going to ask why Geelong? Yep. You obviously come and won the tender process for WorkSafe, which essentially changed the skyline of Geelong.
Yep.
How long was Geelong on the radar? How did it come about? And what's the process been? What's doing business in Geelong?
Yeah, so for us, Geelong is the second CBD to Melbourne, and Melbourne doesn't have a second CBD. And I guess in property, we're always looking for, Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player. They asked him why was he a good hockey player. He said, "I don't skate to where the puck is. I skate to where it's going." And so we're always looking to where that opportunity is going to be, and we want to go there, not where the opportunity has been. And you look at markets around the country, and there's two places in Australia, I say, that are the best places to invest in the world. I think Australia's the best place to invest in the world. It's safe, it's got lifestyle, all of the things that we know. But then you narrow it down and you look and you say, okay, what areas of Australia has lifestyle, affordability and prosperity, which are jobs? Well, if you look, Adelaide and Geelong have both lifestyle and affordability in abundance. And they have incredible people growing up and being educated in the great universities in those towns. And in the past, they had to leave. They had to go to other locations. Now, Geelong doesn't, if you grow up here, you don't need to leave. You don't need to go to Melbourne. You don't need to go to Sydney for a job. You can stay here and have an amazing lifestyle, raise a family, and now have jobs, whether it be with GMHBA or some of the insurance agencies or government or the other entrepreneurial businesses that wrap around Geelong. They're here. So why? Like for me, it's very simple, and I'm happy to keep it quiet for as long as possible so that we can get a jump on the market.
And we're seeing it through COVID, the sea change or the tree change or however it's meant to be. But like the amount of population moving this way, I guess the secret is out now. So.
Well, if you look at the population growth, post-COVID, there was 150,000 jobs here. It grew to 171,000. So it actually grew through COVID. So that shows you through a pandemic. So where in the world can you see such amazing population growth in Western world? It's literally here. So we want to be a part of it. So we think by dumb luck we found it, and we're just going to hang on for dear life and keep riding it. Yeah.
And you've put your money where your mouth is, because you actually got something going on in Adelaide as well, haven't you now?
Yep. No. Well, look, we're invested around the country. We're in every city bar Darwin, and we're about to launch something in Hobart, of all places that we didn't think we'd be, but we'll always go where the opportunity is.
Well, Hobart's a similar story, isn't it? Massive population growth over COVID and all the work, jobs that are created there, it's going really well as well.
Yeah. And look, when you get that prosperity, it feeds on itself, right? And people want to be there, they want to live there, and then businesses wrap around and say, well, if all the smart people are there and they're happy, well, let's create that business opportunity there. So it feeds on itself, and I think Geelong now the momentum's there and it's unstoppable. And it's pretty exciting to be a part of it. And we've invested $500 million into Geelong in the last 5 years, and we want to invest another $500 million in the next 4 years. So we've got big aspirations still, and then from there, who knows? We just keep going.
Looking into the future, can we talk a little bit about your other little development that's going to perhaps go over there, 20 Jerringham Street?
Yep.
So that's a tower that was supposed to go behind the Civic building over there. What does so another 11,000 square metres, and you see that being tenanted as quickly as is this, or is that going to take a bit longer? Or
no, look, it's the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle to the Geelong precinct, to that whole master plan that we've created over there. But that's going to launch in the next probably month and a half, and we will be chasing larger scale government tenants that need big licks of space, and we think that building is well suited to meet the needs of government down here. So, yeah, larger tenants than we'll be chasing for here, but it'll be a great opportunity to really fix the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle, what I think, which is the density that's created amongst these buildings. Then it's self-fulfilling, you've got government, you've got private sector, and they start to feed off each other.
Yeah.
And then it's self-fulfilling. And I said that initially when I came down first, and to Darren Lyons, and he nearly threw me out of his office because he told me not to tell him how to do things in Geelong, and he was right. He had a vision for it. But when you get that density, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
And it's now happened, and we're going to keep building buildings here and trying to.
This is almost like your horizon here, because you've got Work Safe you've done there, you've got the Civic building, we're going to have 20 Jerringham Street, and we've got this beautiful building. Yep. So this is like, did you come up here every now and then, sneak up here with a beer and just go, yep, that's me?
No, we enjoy the wins that we get, and let me tell you, there's a few scrapes along the way, but it is nice to just sit back and look and admire what's happening across the city. And one thing that we're very, very proud of is all of these buildings, and this building is no exception, is to build buildings with facades that could be in any location. That could be on Collins Street, and you'd be proud to have them there. And by building buildings of this quality, we think that we're setting the bar that whether it's us or other people, they're going to have to build buildings like this.
Well, you talk about quality. The WorkSafe building did receive a few awards, engineering design awards and other things. And I think, just looking at the Civic building, how magnificent, that's going to be in line for a few awards, I would have thought. Has the GMHBA got one yet? What's the trophy cabinet look like?
No, we've only just finished it, but we'll certainly be submitting for a lot of awards on this. And we pride ourselves, 1 Mallup Street really was an amazing project. It was the second project in the world to be Platinum, Shell and Core well rated. And that is now the international rating for healthy buildings. So it's like Green Star, but on steroids. And if you look at the major projects across the world, they're all well rated, and Platinum is as high as you can get. And that was the second project in the world to achieve it. So Geelong should be very proud of that.
And did you pull learnings? Like, that was the first one in Geelong. What were the learnings you pulled into GMHBA?
Yeah, so look, we took a lot of learnings, and certainly around the facade and the aspects that tenants are looking for in terms of the amazing view lines that you can see over our shoulder here. We took those, but the other learnings that we took was through, the development of the subcontractor market and local procurement. Yeah. We're very, very proud of that upskilling of local procurement that we've been able to engage with, and I think from memory we got over 60% of local procurement here. So when we started...
Great result, really.
Yeah, amazing result. So when we started, buildings of that nature hadn't been built here in Geelong, and we're very proud to say that a lot of people upskilled, and then they took that skill from there to here, over to the Geelong Council building, and now...
And 20 Jerringham next.
20 Jerringham, and for any other developers, get down here. There's a workforce.
And of course, that's a first for certainly Geelong, but I don't know how many buildings in Australia would use that timber structure that's been used on the Civic Centre building.
So again, we're very lucky to be building out of cross-laminated timber, CLT. It's one of the biggest buildings in the Southern Hemisphere. It'll be in the top 5 in the Southern Hemisphere of office buildings built out of CLT. And what that means is it has the lowest carbon footprint day one creation. So the embedded carbon is in the timber, in the structure. So we're very proud of that, and it was pure dumb luck that we built a CLT building in COVID, because when we were putting it together, all the material arrived on site, and the sites were closed down to 25% of the amount of people allowed on site. Yeah. And we only needed 8 people to click that thing together. So we were very lucky. We never lost any program or delay across the superstructure. So it was dumb luck. It wasn't. We didn't foresee COVID and lockdowns, but... Yeah,
not meant to admit that you said, I saw this coming.
Yeah, we looked around a lot of corners on that one. Yeah.
How different is this feel really to, your standard acoustic ceilings, your light fit, your light fittings like you get in Melbourne with your carpet tiles and all that sort of stuff. This is a completely different feel, isn't it? The rents per square metre that you need for something like this, do they have to be astronomical, or is this sort of a very economical type of fit out?
Well, we would have liked them to be higher, but GMHBA held us back. They wouldn't pay the rent. No. Look, I just actually got recently asked, can Geelong afford the rents that are required to get these sort of buildings out of the ground? And I reverse engineered the question. I said, can businesses afford not to be in buildings like this? Because if you can't retain and attract the highest calibre of staff, then, what are you doing for your business? And whether it is that you're paying $500 a metre rent or $350 for rent that doesn't justify or demonstrate anything to your staff is a very low-grade building. Or you come into a building like this and you get efficiencies by building a fit-out that's more economical in terms of size and much more efficient.
And retention.
And then you've overlay staff retention, recruiting fees, downtime. So I think businesses can't afford to pay
the labour market has never been tighter. I reckon retrenchment's a huge issue now for a lot of big businesses, especially that stuff coming out of Melbourne, that sort of stuff. They should be looking at this with big eyes open, I reckon. It's a beautiful space.
Obviously, we're looking at A-grade tenancy space.
Yep.
What's the future for office space? Where does it go from here?
Yeah, well, look, I think being a modern building like this, it's about creating an experience for the user group that's in it. And us as a landlord, we want to create and fulfil the logistics of the daily activity in the white-collar business. So whether it is that they come to an authentic wellness centre across the ground plane where they can ride to work, towel services, end-of-trip facilities, then come up to a ground plane that offers amazing amenity, whether it be food, coffee, that interaction with other people from other businesses but colleagues, then come up into spaces with vistas like that. That's pretty inspiring, and we have to tap into that. And as landlords, it's not enough that you just rent someone, 4 walls on a roof. You've got to really curate the day for the businesses so that they can attract and retain the best possible staff and have people wanting to come to work. Because if we can't draw them from their house into the buildings that we offer, then we're just not going to have tenants. So we're very mindful of that, and we think that this building really has that in its DNA, its ability to attract and retain the best staff and pull people into it to collaborate, innovate and create, those opportunities of tomorrow.
Well, most aren't going to have views like this at their homes, are they?
No. It is mind-blowing, the beauty of the views out of this building. So
I think it's really important that Geelong see this, right, because we've got so many people in Geelong that believe that the cap for rents for private B grade, C grade is there and it shouldn't budge, and that's where it's been forever, and it's really hard to see them to break that mould, to go, that $300 a square metre, that's a lot of money these days. I think you need to take in all the things you just said around retention and all these other costs you've got to build into that equation, and have a look at these spaces, because I think that this is to answer your question, Mike, this is where it's going to go.
And this is what now companies are looking for, because it's very competitive for talent.
Yeah.
So, if you want to compete with this type of thing, then obviously the quality of office, it comes at a cost, and we're seeing more and more of it. It's like 181 Mirrable Street with Barwon Health going in there.
Yep.
The rents are going to be a similar fashion, and they'll get something.
But there's still a very competitive competition between here and Melbourne. I've got, I know a law firm that's paying $1,000 a square metre to be in space in Collins Street, which they haven't used for 2 years. So, those sort of rents dwarf what we're asking here. There still is very much a competitive difference between us and Melbourne, but then again, we're getting this. I know where I'd prefer to be.
And one of the things about what employees are looking for nowadays is just a life balance. It's not like work life, it's just life, because it all blends together now with working at home and working in the office. So for us and tenants of this building and some of the other buildings that Shane's pulling out of the ground, access to the waterfront to go for a run and a walk, getting into Westfield and getting shopping done. People will do their supermarket shop at lunchtime and whack it in the fridge. These are all things that people value nowadays, because people are time poor. They want to be able to do this stuff, and so we've got a space, thankfully, that allows that to happen. So,
do you encourage some of the staff to get out of the building and go to the cafes and the stuff around the town as well? Is it supportive of the surrounding businesses as much with your philosophy for your staff?
Yeah, absolutely. We're pretty early in our journey of returning after COVID, but certainly supporting and getting out and trying to support local business as much as we can is important. That's one of the things that we aligned pretty well on with Shane early on was, GMHBA was strongly of the view, if we do this, we need to be supporting local business as much as we can. And QE came in with the same philosophy, so yeah, it's important.
Well, from a work and amenity perspective, it's it's very unique, isn't it? Like if you work in Collins Street and whatever, and you've got obviously great shops and cafes, but you've got that here.
Yeah.
And what you don't have in Melbourne is that waterfront.
That's right. I mean, Little Mallet Street now is just amazing with some of the restaurants and bars and cafes that are popping up. So, you know, it challenges to Grave Street and some of these other pretty hot streets in the city.
I promise I don't value things based on their vicinity to Celador. I promise that, you know, I do. If you're a few metres from Celador, it's probably a bit less.
It should be
close to the cellar door, didn't we?
Yeah.
We're able to work it out in the cellar door.
I once moved into a house because it was 3 doors closer to the pub.
Yeah, nice.
All right, so it's very unusual for us to get a man like Shane Quinn to come down from the Big Smoke to tell us some of these stuff about these buildings. And Shane, this is the moment you get a free plug. You've got the upstairs floor available. What's the go there, mate? You're going to throw in the kitchen sink to fill it? What are we doing?
No, look, we're working with a number of tenants. We've got 3 floors left out of the 9 levels that we've got in the building, but I think it sells itself. It's 1,100 square metres, and yeah, we are looking for tenants. So if there's any businesses out there like yours,
well, I reckon it could be a spot over there for a little valuation firm. I reckon
we could fit you in. We're absolutely open for business. 3 more floors to go. Speaking to a number of tenants, but look, it really does sell itself.
Are they shelves upstairs, or are they fitted out like this? Do they come ready to go, or?
Yep. So we are speccing some fit outs,
Yep.
but there are a couple of whole floors where people can, I guess, live out their dream of what they want and how they want it, and we facilitate that for them. So we sit with them and take
a small business could come in and take a small space, and other businesses could take bigger space. So it's pretty flexible.
It is.
Yeah.
We have space from, call it 180 square metres up to 1,100 square metres. So
perfect.
Everything in between.
Yeah, great. Well, get on that, guys, because I reckon you couldn't do better.
Yep. Thanks for the day.
Well, that's all we got for this month's episode. What a fantastic opportunity to get through there and actually talk to
Shane Quinn is an absolute ripper. His knowledge base is just next level.
I think the thing that excited me the most is how much they've invested in this town and how much they want to invest in this town.
So he said 500 million they've already invested. They want to invest another 500 million. And I reckon, if going through my client list, there's at least another, that again, plus a bit more. I reckon there's over $1 billion worth of development sitting there waiting.
No, it's exciting time. So thanks, Shane from Quintessential Equity for your time and showing us through the latest Geelong building. And again, Wes Self from GMHBA. We do have some high-level guests booked in for the remainder of this year on
and very topical.
They'll be very, very topical. So we can't wait to tell you who they are. Won't tell you quite yet. But again, our normal thanks go to John Helmer at Geelong Celador, Chris behind the camera, Johnny Fitzgerald, who puts this all together. Thanks, Gareth. And again, if you like hearing from us, please hit subscribe. Otherwise, we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thanks again.